The Whispering Woods were an ancient deep forest that loomed over the modest settlement of Ravenswood, which was located in the center of the little town and sandwiched between rolling hills and a placid river. The locals had always been wary of the woods, believing that the trees themselves murmured dark truths when no one was there. The rumors were like a ghostly symphony, a terrifying chorus that reverberated through the town at night. Those who ventured approached the forest's fringes reported hearing mysterious voices that lured them further into the woodland, and those who dared to go any further were never seen again. The Whispering Woods were the subject of urban tales that predated the town itself. Legend has it that the woodland is inhabited by the angry ghosts of those who met violent deaths there aeons ago. Their sobs, their pleas for vengeance, echoed in the shadows. There were others in the community who laughed off such stories as ignorant folklore. Others, however, held the view that these woodland spirits were very much real, and they spoke of an ancient wrong that had launched these vindictive beings on their present course of action. Curious teens gathered at the edge of the Whispering Woods one evening as the sun set, spreading deep shadows over the village. Sarah, a courageous and independent young lady with an insatiable curiosity, was one of them. She was aware of the legends, but she was still certain that the mysterious mutterings had an explanation. There was a distinct sense of anxiety as the party stood on the edge of the woodland and the night air grew silent. Dappled shadows were produced on the woodland floor by the moonlight as it penetrated the dense treetops. Gentle and eerie, like a tune blown on the wind from afar, the murmurs started. One of the teens asked the others in a hushed tone, "Did you hear that?" His voice shook with fear. Sarah acknowledged it, her curiosity triumphing over her dread, saying, "It's probably just the wind rustling through the leaves." But the more they explored, the more compelling the whispering became. They heard what seemed like a choir of the damned coming from the woods. With each step, the jungle became more gloomy and ominous, but they persevered. The moonlight dimmed and darkness appeared to engulf them. The youngsters glanced nervously at one another, their confidence ebbing as the murmurs took on an ominous tone. Sarah, intent on discovering the secrets of the Whispering Woods, blazed a trail deeper into the forest with a flashlight. The trees towered over the area like silent sentinels, their gnarled and twisted limbs stretching out as if to claim any unwanted visitors. Ignorant of the dangers that awaited them in the depths of the whispering forests, the party of adolescents continued further into the heart of the old forests as the night's whispers encircled them. Farther and farther into the Whispering Woods the gang of teens went, and the darker it became and the more eerie the murmurs became. Sarah, their courageous leader, was unwavering in her resolve to investigate the forest rumors and find out the truth. The moon was drooping low in the sky, its weak light unable to break through the thick covering of old trees. The woodland floor was covered with a thick covering of fallen leaves that rustled with each step, and shadows swirled ominously about them. Sarah was still quite curious, but she began to feel uneasy as the volume of the whispering increased. The words were hazy, as though uttered in a long-lost language, and they appeared to reverberate off of the trees themselves. Mark, one of Sarah's pals, said in a hushed voice, "Are you sure about this, Sarah?" "I feel really uneasy in these forests." Sarah turned to comfort him, but there was a startling sound that cut off her words. A strange, melancholy lament that came from deep within the forest broke through the hushed conversation. Everyone stopped moving, their flashlights searching the night for the noise's origin. They suddenly realized that their pal Lisa wasn't there. "It's like, where's Lisa?" Another member of the group, Emily, questioned with a quiver in her voice. The realization that Lisa had vanished caused widespread panic. Their voices shook in the darkness as they yelled her name, but she did not answer. She could as well have disintegrated into nothingness. Sarah felt the burden of obligation. They were now missing a member of their party, since she had led them into this strange jungle. She made a choice because she was determined not to abandon her buddy. "We have to find her," Sarah said firmly. "We know Lisa isn't too far away. Together we'll stay on her trail." They started looking for Lisa with their torches at night. They felt like they were being engulfed by the forest as the tangle of ancient trees closed in on them. There was a renewed intensity in the whispering, as if someone were trying to warn them of imminent peril. As they ventured farther into the forest, they came upon a clearing that was illuminated by a ghostly, bluish light. A huge, twisted tree with branches like bony fingers stood in the middle of the clearing. Lisa was discovered hiding out in the shade of a tree. She was knelt on the woodland floor, hands over her ears as if to drown out the incessant rumblings of the forest. Her eyes were wide with fear, and she didn't even seem to notice that they were there. Were saying, "Lisa, it's us." When Emily heard her buddy, she yelled out and ran to her aid. Nonetheless, Lisa remained silent. She kept staring at the old tree and muttering something nobody could understand. They saw the markings etched into the tree's bark at that time, and they were disturbed by the evil energy they emanated. Sarah hesitantly approached, her heart racing. She leaned out and touched Lisa on the shoulder, and at that same moment, Lisa let out a scream of unfathomable pain. Her cry seemed to elicit a response from the forest itself. The trees were trembling so hard that their branches were flailing about like they were mad. The tone of the whispers changed, becoming louder and more malicious. The voices hissed at us, accusingly saying, "You should not have come. The ghosts of the Whispering Woods are angry with you." Sarah and her pals stared in terror as gnarled tree fingers reached out from the soil and wrapped themselves around Lisa. The Whispering Woods had shown its true evil colors, and now their gang of companions was trapped in a nightmare from which they could not awaken. Lisa had been taken by the forest, hypnotized by its dreadful presence, and now the forest appeared determined to get revenge on those who had dared to wander too far into its depths. Sarah and the others gasped as they saw Lisa being lifted far above the woodland floor by the ancient tree's entwined roots. As the malicious energy of the Whispering Woods coursed through her, she writhed in pain as she hung helplessly in the air. "The dictum! Let her go!" Emily screamed, her voice full of anguish. However, all that was heard back from the jungle was an unsettling quiet, broken only by the continuation of the whispering. Lisa's wide, terrified eyes narrowed into a blank, alien stare. Sarah was aware of the urgency of the situation. She delved into her bag and, hands shaking, took out a little pocket knife. She went up to the tree, intent on saving her companion from the branches. The old tree trembled as Sarah began to hack into the roots and let out an eerie cry. The woodland seemed to be battling to save its hostage. Sarah, though, continued on with unflinching resolve. Lisa's difficulties increased in intensity as she cut out another root. Whoever or whatever had snared her clearly had no intention of letting go easily. There was an increase in the volume of angry, accusatory mutterings surrounding them. There was hatred in the words as they growled, "You will pay for this intrusion." Sarah sliced through the final remaining root, and Lisa's limp, dead corpse fell to the ground. The trees heaved a sigh of relief, and the ghostly mutterings gradually subsided. However, the reprieve was just temporary. Sarah and her pals saw that Lisa was not breathing as they gathered around her inert body. They tried desperately to bring her back to life, but Lisa was gone. Emily sobbed as she held to the corpse of her companion. "We have to leave," she wailed. Sarah agreed, her heart aching with remorse and loss. Having paid a horrible price for their curiosity, they left the clearing behind and continued on into the Whispering Woods. They walked back through the forest, and it was as if it were telling them not to come back. They made it to the forest's edge, startled and disturbed by what they'd seen. As they emerged from the Whispering Woods, the village of Ravenswood welcomed them with its old streets and lovely buildings, but it had taken on a new sinister air. What had transpired in the depths of that old woodland would change the group of friends forever. The terrible news of Lisa's death quickly traveled across the community, and rumors began to circulate concerning the curse of the Whispering Woods. Some said the forest's spirits were getting even with humans for breaking into their territory, while others said it was just an unfortunate accident. But Sarah and her friends had the facts on their side. Curiosity had led them far into a forest inhabited by angry ghosts, and now they were paying a horrible price for it. They were constantly reminded of the night Lisa disappeared into the Whispering Woods. They wondered if the evil spirits of the Whispering Woods would ever be appeased, or if the old woodland would continue to throw its eerie shadow over the town of Ravenswood as they grieved for their comrade and attempted to make sense of the atrocities they had experienced. The group of friends who had explored the Whispering Woods were still reeling from the tragic loss of Lisa. Once a tight-knit group, the survivors found it difficult to put behind them the shocking events they had experienced. Sarah, who had been the group's courageous leader, now felt burdened with duty and remorse. She was angry at herself for having led them into the woods, for having ignored the warnings and myths that had circulated about the Whispering Woods for so long. Ravenswood locals looked upon the group with a mixture of compassion and distrust. Some said Lisa's death was an unfortunate accident, but others said it was a curse. But Sarah and her companions understood the truth. They had seen angry ghosts deep in the old woodland, and the group's once solid friendship began to weaken as the weeks grew into months. They stopped talking to one another because they couldn't stop thinking about what happened that night. Emily, Lisa's best friend, felt the pain of her loss the most. She had recurring dreams about the Whispering Woods and the evil powers that had taken her buddy, preventing her from getting any rest. Emily was sitting alone in her room one night when the voices from the forest started to reverberate in her head. At first, they were hardly audible, like faraway echoes, but as time went on, they became more louder, filling her room with a chilling atmosphere. Someone said, "You brought us here," and the others whispered agreement. "You need to apologize." Emily's pulse was racing because the murmurs were getting louder. In order to satisfy the evil ghosts, she knew she had to go back to the Whispering Woods. The forest seemed to be yelling at her, demanding vengeance for the invasion that had killed Lisa. Emily went out into the woods by herself after she gave in to the creepy allure of the voices. There was a thin veil of light from the moon over the old trees. It seemed as if the forest had changed since she'd entered it, as if it knew she was there and was waiting for her. Emily noticed a ghostly apparition standing under the gnarled tree as she approached the clearing where they had discovered Lisa. At the very least, it was Lisa's ghost. Her speech was full of yearning, and there was a deep melancholy in her eyes. Lisa's spectral presence pleaded with Emily, "You must help us. We are stuck here, unable to progress. You have to figure out a means to end our suffering." Emily nodded, her eyes welling up with tears. She was determined to do whatever it took to bring peace to the restless ghosts that had long haunted the Whispering Woods. Emily, aided by Lisa's ghost, set out to learn the truth about the forgotten murder that sent the ghosts on their journey of retribution. She researched the past of the community in hopes of discovering secrets that had been dormant for decades, if not centuries. As Emily dug more into Ravenswood's murky history, she came to understand that facing the town's own history of injustice and treachery was the only way to appease the ghosts. She had no illusions about the ease with which the evil powers of the Whispering Woods would relinquish their grip on the town. But Emily was resolved to make things right, to find a way to release the restless spirits and put an end to the Whispering Woods' eerie history. So she set out to discover the truth and break the curse that had afflicted Ravenswood for centuries, with the memory of her dead companion serving as her beacon of hope and inspiration.